We have to fill our communities with the truth that the mainstream media and the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. have robbed from us for these last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. They've just been stacking it on top of each other. And I'm talking about that swamp monster machine known as the deep state. They have partnered together to corrupt our communities and rob our votes because they think they can lie their way through an election cycle. And they've done it over and over and over again until they met a guy named Donald Trump. He came in and took on the government gangsters in the swamp. He exposed the level of corruption that had been creeping there for 40, 50, 60 years, just like Ike Eisenhower said it would if we let them. We let our duty slip away because we let it be taken over by elected bureaucrats who took our rights away from us and sold them back to us as if they were doing us a favor. Now we've caught them thanks to President Donald Trump. So the message for us and the message for the community is not one of "I told you so." That's not the right move. We have to unify, as President Trump said, behind his Agenda 47, because he's the guy that's actually bringing everyone into the tent. So we can either do that, or we can take the bait from the projection con artists in Washington, D.C. and allow ourselves to tear each other apart. But when I see rooms like this, I know you all have the message, I know you all have the truth, and I know you all have the next 42 days to go 110% for this guy. So I thought I would level set for you a little bit about what these government gangsters in Washington, D.C. are doing and have been doing, and we can take that to our communities and tell them, look, you can vote however you want, but how about you try voting on the truth? And I believe if we convince everyday Americans to vote on the truth and show them that they've been robbed, they're going to flock to Donald Trump's movement. I mean, you just have to think about it this way. Did you think in the 21st century in the United States of America, a political party would illegally use campaign finance dollars, go overseas and hire a foreign intelligence asset and create a fake foreign dossier using tens of millions of American dollars, then have the FBI funnel that into a federal secret court, only to go to that court under oath and lie to a federal judge to illegally surveil a presidential opponent and their campaign and their team? That's what happened in the USA, not on the other side of the world. And we know that as Russiagate. And we have to remind everyday Americans who still think Donald Trump's a Russian asset because of the fake news, because of the radical left-wing agenda, because of the deep state operatives in DC. And it's not a Republican or Democratic machine. It is a uniparty machine. All they care about is their next job, their next paycheck, and they cannot return to the revolving door of Washington, D.C. with Donald Trump at the helm. That's what they fear. They are terrified of it. So if you don't think they're working on Russiagate 17.0 right now, you haven't been paying attention. These are the guys that gave you impeachment 1, impeachment 2. These are the guys that gave you the bogus January 6th disinformation insurrection narrative. These are the guys that write stylized letters and have the New York Times and CNN hold them up as if they were gospel. And the letters that I'm talking about are the ones that must be told to our communities. The 51 intelligence letters, literally, in my opinion, was the biggest rig job of a presidential election cycle in modern US history. You had 51 intelligence geniuses, including secretaries of defense, CIA directors, and directors of the NSA, come in and say a week before the election, thanks to Tony Blinken, who was a senior advisor to Biden, and say, what? Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. Now, we had an attorney general in Bill Barr that could have exposed it at the time, but he bent the knee to the deep state because he is the deep state. And we had others in the Trump administration that could have exposed that, like Gina Haspel, who's director of the CIA. She took 6 hours to approve the publication of that letter. 6 hours. That stuff takes months of interagency work to do it. She knew it was false. The FBI knew it was false. The DOJ knew it was false. You knew it was false. And of course Merrick Garland's DOJ knew it was false, because what did they do this year? They convicted Hunter Biden in 2 different state jurisdictions of federal crimes based on the evidence on that laptop. But they still tell you, they still stand by that letter, and they still say Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation, because that's all they got. They don't have a single better policy under Kamala Harris. If they had one, she would have put it out. Right. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to lob these grenades at us and tear our communities apart. And thank God for Donald Trump, because he's the only one working to bring this community and this country together. And what do these geniuses just do just this week yet again? 741 so-called national security experts. You see this beauty? Literally signed a letter saying, we, as 4-star, 3-star, 2-star generals, former secretaries, former deputies, former assistants, former chiefs of staff, 741 of them, all born and bred in the swamp, came out with a letter saying, we prefer Kamala Harris as our commander-in-chief. These are the war-making mongers that Washington, D.C. produces over and over and over again, because these people live at the swamp monster ATM. They cannot cash their checks, they cannot get their next job if Donald Trump comes in. And the reason you gotta watch out for these letters is they're gonna keep coming. They're gonna use it as a headline to say, look at all these people. Shame on these people who wore the uniform and have the audacity to tell us that they are going to vote for Kamala Harris, who led the most disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal that I was ever ashamed to call myself an American to be a small part of. When Donald Trump led it, when I was his chief of staff at DOD, we did an intelligence-based withdrawal. We did not have political deadlines, and we made sure we had diplomatic goals and milestones set, and we would withdraw appropriately. Donald Trump lost 0 service members in his withdrawal event. Here's something the fake news won't tell you. Donald Trump, as president after the election, ordered the largest transition in DOD history, which I led. And we handed over, during COVID, more notes, more information, more memorandum, and more access to witnesses and government employees than ever before. And we said, you can call this plan whatever you want, it's too important. And what do? They light that plan on fire. Then you have Joe Biden go to the dignified transfer at Dover and check his watch. And you have Kamala Harris, who hasn't even called a single family to this day. And these generals, these deputies, these chiefs of staff, these 741 so-called national security experts want her. How many wars did Donald Trump end? 3. How many world wars did Kamala Harris start? 2. So far and counting. Just look at the difference. You have to take their verbiage and their language and their letters, and you have to put them back out into our communities with the facts. Kamala Harris gave the mullahs in Iran $7 billion. What did they do? They finished making a nuclear bomb. What did they do? They hired Hezbollah as their mercenary force and launched a war in Israel. And what did they do with that? Thousands of innocents were murdered, and thousands more will be murdered. Americans were taken hostage. Speaking of which, Donald Trump has to be recognized for a fact that the mainstream media never covers. Yep. He rescued over 50 hostages and detainees from around the world. That's more than every president before him. A family who has a hostage overseas, who do you think they want in the White House? Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? Trump. And Kamala Harris keeps coming to the podium and saying, if you elect me, I'll do this. Well, she had 4 years to do it, and this is the beauty of this election. We had a 4-year Trump presidency, and we've had a 4-year Harris presidency. Let's put them side by side on a national security perspective. Let's put them side by side on a law enforcement perspective. Let's see where we want to send $200 billion. Do you want to send it to the guys who are making money in the Ukraine and signing this letter? Do you want to send it to the 51 Intel guys who said they were out of government, but we just caught them? Half of those guys were special government employees when they signed that letter, making money from the U.S. government. Or do you want to see a president who's going to take care of our 55,000 homeless veterans first? That's priorities are simple. They yell at us and say, President Trump doesn't have a policy. That man has been putting out policies since the day he left the White House. He has a 20-point bulleted plan to clean up this country and put Americans first. He does more TV, more media, more debates than anybody you've ever seen in the political arena, and he's happy to do it. And we are blessed to have these great men and women talk to you about everyday community issues on behalf of Donald Trump and to show you what they can do, the power of their movement. If you can export what you guys are doing here in Wisconsin, remember, the last 2 election cycles, both of them, came down to 5 states and 55,000 votes. 5 states and 55,000 votes. Are you telling me we can't go out there when we have the greatest leader, Donald J. Trump, and we can't go out there county by county and pick up 1,000 here and 1,000 there? Right. Your job is to go and register every single vote. Your job is to abide by whatever voting laws you have and put aside your personal feelings about them and win. Because you know what is cool? You know what's fun? Winning. Yeah. Then you change the law. Yeah. Go back in history and say this and that 2, 4, 6 years ago. And I don't care if you call this election the greatest election of our lifetime. This election is the next election. It's the only one coming up. Yep. And it's the only time we're going to have President Trump on the ballot again. Yep. And it's the only time we are going to have the greatest opportunity, in my opinion, to absolutely crush the deep state of Washington, D.C. choice a two-tier system of justice, who's not just coming for President Trump. We've seen the expose of how they treated Joe Biden in his classified documents case versus President Donald Trump unconstitutionally. If you want to make sure that FBI doesn't show up at our houses of worship, at our schools where we send our children, and arrest us because we dare to teach our kids reading, history, and math, and science versus gender fluidity, then you have to shut down the reign of terror in Washington, D.C. that these guys are leading. And half of them are Republicans. Half of them are Republicans. And it's not just about the top of the ticket. You've got to go all the way down. The message I want to leave you with is not a national one, ironically. The message I want to leave you with is a local one. Because local level politics wins every day for everyday Americans. And if you guys don't show up every day for the next 41 days, we can't do it. We've got the guy that's going to end the forever wars. We've got the guy that's going to seal the border. We've got the guy that's going to kill Al-Qaeda senior leadership. We've got the guy that's going to wipe out the emirs of ISIS. We've got the guy that's going to make Iran bend the knee. We've got the guy that's going to restore global diplomacy around this world. We have that leader in Donald J. Trump. The least we can do is show up for him. We're going to continue to show up around this country. You guys in Wisconsin are the key to the Midwest. We have to win this state for Donald J. Trump. You guys go out there in your communities and win this state.